Hold on tight for the next hour. You're entering into a place, a zone called the alternative to the alternative media. It's a place, a special place where even truth seekers fear to tread.
All right, people, let's move like we've got a purpose.
Affirmative.
Okay, Greg Anthony here, and glad you're back on the Investigative Journal on this April 19th, 2017 day on our calendar. And today we're going to talk about chemtrails. And the question I first have is, do the elites have an antidote for chemtrails? Since they know they're spraying barium, aluminum, and all of these toxic chemicals in the air, they've been doing it since the 90s. Do they have an antidote to protect themselves from it? That's a great question. And because every time I talk about chemtrails, I get an email that states, well, if that's true, why would they want to kill themselves? Good question. Okay, I don't know if I have the complete answer, but I imagine they must have some kind of antidote. So let's try to find it out and spread it around to the world, right? Because if you look, I first noticed chemtrails in the 90s, and many people don't even look up in the sky anymore, and they just take it for granted that these planes that are spraying, lines of, you can see these huge planes about 30,000 feet above spraying this stuff all over the world, and people they take it as normal. And it's amazing to me, because the other day, I knew I had to do a show on chemtrails, and today I want to do that. But I went around asking people, because lately where I live near San Diego, and when I travel into Mexico, there's chemtrails all over the place. And this is an area where there's a lot of military bases. It's the Navy's here. There's a lot of military in San Diego, right? And for years, I didn't see many chemtrails. But in the last 3 months, I have. And suspiciously, is that the right word? I noticed that people were coming down with this crazy cough. I mean, a lot of people in the area where I lived, were going around coughing and coughing and coughing. And then I caught it. And it lasted over a month. And I still feel some effects from it. And I went around asking people, and people told me, they said, wow, yeah, this cough just came up on me. I didn't really feel like I had the flu, but every night I would cough and cough, and I couldn't get to sleep, and it was starting to really bother me. My systems weren't right. I felt the immune system wasn't protecting me. I couldn't sleep at night. I was getting, I'd have to sleep during the day, etc., etc. Then I checked it on the internet, and I found there was this was going around England. It was going around in other countries, Australia, this cough that no one could find a cure for. And then even doctors said, oh, antibiotics don't work on this. So I'm going, wow, could this be related to chemtrails? And I'm thinking again, well, I'm going to go ask some people. So I walked around and I saw the chemtrails, and I asked somebody, I said, look up there, what do you think that is? And they go, oh, just the jets flying, that's their contrails. And instead of getting into an argument, I said, okay, check out this. Just Google chemtrails and then get back to me. I talked to 10 people and 9 didn't know what I was talking about. And I say they're slowly killing us with these chemtrails that have all this toxic stuff in them. So the question is, do the elites have an antidote? So I thought I would go to Richie from Boston. He asked that same question. See what he has to say about that.
I had a few minutes, and I was going through the comments, and a YouTuber named Strawman left a comment about the chemtrailing, and he said, do the elites have an antidote for this, because they're breathing this in too? Well, that comes up an awful lot, and it would appear to me that they must have taken some sort of preparations to protect themselves. If you remember, Michael Jackson used to always walk around wearing a face mask. Now, I'm not saying he knew, but I'll tell you what, people with money have access to knowledge that we would only dream about or not even believe is real. again, I have to go back to the Vatican, is loaded with information that they're not allowed anywhere near. The true reason why humans are on this earth is probably in that Vatican library someplace. But to answer the question, yes, I think they probably do have an antidote, or because you need to protect yourself against the aluminum. They're spraying such heavy metals, and we've already had people go through this time and time and time again, where they've gone through and tested the water from very remote places, and it shows up with crazy levels of barium, strontium, and aluminum. And some of you guys have actually sent me your results from your blood tests, and it's showing all that. So long story short, yeah, I think they do have an antidote. But if they don't, I'm going to have to guess this is what they're counting on. Because this is from the other day in the Huffington Post. Transhumanism is popping up every place, absolutely every place. I mean, look at these headlines: transhumanism in the presidential campaign, transhumanism. Every single, any place, if you search for transhumanism just a little tiny bit, you'll find it everywhere. And really, really, quote unquote, smart people have been pushing this for a long time. They've been pushing and predicting that this stuff would be coming. Now, a lot of people think that they can upload their consciousness, what we would call our souls. They can upload their consciousness into computers, and it turns out, once again, Harvard is right behind that. Harvard has an entire website devoted to that. I left the links in the video I did the other day about them chemtrailing the sky. So that's their out. They poison everybody. And the other thing I'm really, really starting to think is that the fact that they're spraying the sky so bad is to fill us up. They must have been tracking everybody's blood, because it's easy enough for them to do when you have everyone's medical records. I think they're tracking everybody's blood, and there isn't quite enough aluminum, barium, strontium, and whatever else in people's bloodstreams. Now, if you use all those inside somebody's bloodstream and combine that with things like smart dust or nanoparticulates, you can literally control somebody using radio frequencies. And I know that sounds absolutely ridiculous, but ODD Reality did a phenomenal video on it yesterday. And as I was watching the video, I didn't watch it all the way through. He came to the exact same conclusion that I was texting to him as I was watching his video. You see what I'm saying? And this stuff is not hidden. They are absolutely, they're right out in the open with their transhumanist agenda and their transhumanist dreams. Cryogenics believe that they're going to be able to upload, even after they're long since gone, Ted Williams. These guys in virtual reality, this is what they're doing. This is what their plans are. And I believe the reason that they're spraying the atmosphere so bad is so that we can easily be controlled like worker bees, drones, whatever you want to call it. And I think that's exactly why Harvard has stepped up their spraying program. The only reason Harvard has come out and said that we are going to spray the atmosphere is because it's going to be so obvious, it's going to be so apparent that they have to come out and say something, because everyone's going to notice it, which blows me away, because I can't imagine people don't see it now, but apparently not. But I guess it's going to be so bad with their Operation Solar Shield that they actually had to tell people about it in the first place. But I think the technology behind it is incredibly nefarious. But as far as the question Strawman asked, it's either they have an antidote or they're strictly listening to this guy right here, and they plan on uploading their consciousness into a robotic body that's waiting for them. And that's why they're spending all this money on AI and robotic technology, because it's off the hook. You've got guys building robots that look exactly like themselves, and that you can't tell the difference. Just like this one right here. And now this is an old video. This is 8 years ago. This looks exactly like the guy that built it. That's what they're doing. That's what all the wealthy people are doing right now. It's off the hook. At any rate, I'll leave links in the description, but to answer the question that I was asked, that's what I think's going on. I think it's the most nefarious thing we've ever seen before, and I believe they're kicking it up exponentially and right in our faces this year. Really, really bad. And one other thing is they're censoring the hell out of us. I mean, it's unbelievable. I've gotten more copyright strikes than you can shake a stick at, and I'm no longer able to live stream, even though I'm in good standing. You see what I mean? I'm not able to live stream anymore. Now, when I was doing live streams, I was telling you guys that they were attacking the channel left and right, and I'm pretty sure it was fairly obvious. But right now, they just decided I'm not allowed to live stream anymore, so there it is. They're shutting us down. Find alternatives. Download information to your own computers if you can, and protect it. Because at one point, You're going to come online one morning and everyone's going to be gone. Just saying. Richie from Boston. It's happening. I'm out.
Okay, glad I listened to that, because I never thought about that. I was just thinking in terms of them putting barium, strontium, and aluminum in the skies to infect us and kill us in the end, a depopulation program. But to think what he was saying about robotics, and if you start Googling transhumanism, and you see some of the robots they're making that look exactly like the maker, wow, I think it's worth looking into. Could they be trying to outdo God in a sense, as they always try to do? You know, they always say the only two things that really happen are death and taxes. And we know the rich don't pay taxes, so maybe they're trying to get out of death as well. But anyway, they'll never see the Maker anyway, no matter what they do. And that's told to us in the Bible. So let's continue on with chemtrails today, okay? And I've got something here. It's an analysis made by someone from Germany who's both a scientist and a journalist, a good mix. See what he has to say, because the real topic here then becomes this. Everybody knows there is aluminum and barium and strontium and titanium in chemtrails. But have you ever heard about, it's called piezoelectric crystals, and of the so-called smart dust of Morgellons? Are these technologies of human origin? What are they, and how they relate to each other? How do they relate to each other? So let's ask this gentleman who's looked at chemtrails, and like I said, it's happening all over the world. Years ago when I was doing stories, I would interview people from Australia, from England, you have it, Ireland, and the same thing was going on all over the world. It's happening in Mexico too. When I go to Mexico, I see the same plane. It's amazing to me. And when you go, I remember years ago I tried to go to the Air Force and ask them, where do these planes exist? What are they? They shut you down like, and then they put you on some list. I know that for a fact. But anyway, let's listen to see this chemtrails analysis.
As you heard, I'm coming from Germany, and I did science half of my life, and I worked as a journalist the other half of my life, writing articles, books for about 1.5 years in film business. So I saw a little bit of the world and many, many different topics. So I'm a little bit trained in interconnecting and understanding more complicated fields of research. This is maybe my core quality. And I started to deal with environmental monitoring when I was in Norway. Actually, I was working in Norway in the field of electrosensitivity for a company supplying measuring material like this one, and shielding materials, and giving courses for the people to understand what is happening if somebody becomes electrosensitive. And when I was there, I kind of was asked to look at chemical analysis of dying plants and the rainwater that caused the plant death, and soil samples, because the farmers realized they're losing parts of their harvest that year. It was 2012, but they didn't know why. So they went to the labs, and then they had the lab results and they couldn't read it. They saw values, but they didn't even know what should have been on these papers. So they addressed me as a little bit crazy scientist from Germany and asked for help. And since then, I'm working on this chemtrail topic. And I think we looked through it now. It took quite a while to understand the different, let's say, the different agendas behind it, because it is not a single agenda. It's not a single group that has interests and is doing something to get what they want. It is a kind of onion-like structure of different groups who have different interests. And the longer you research on the topic, the more layers you discover. So what I'm trying to do today is kind of to dive through this onion-like structure and to try to give you a picture of those different agendas behind chemtrailing. There are two things I'm not going to do, and where I really would ask everybody who is discussing the topic, don't stare into the sky and try to figure out whether the thing you see is a chemtrail or contrail. It leads to nothing. It's a fruitless discussion, and we cannot solve this from down here. You cannot grab the stuff up there, you cannot make a chemical analysis. Just staring at it is hopeless. And the other thing that took me about 1 year, one lost year, is to deal with chemical analysis. This has one reason. If you make chemical analysis, you take a substance and dilute it in acids, and then whatever is dissolved by the acid can be analyzed, and what you get is metal values. You don't have a clue, if you did that, about the chemistry you analyzed or the crystal structure you analyzed, because everything that is dissolved, is gone, and all you have is the metal. This is one problem. You don't really see what you have. And the other problem is that not everything is soluble in acids. And actually the entire core technologies that we could discover later, if you check them in the lab, they are all completely resistant to acids. So there's no chance to get the real McCoy by chemical analysis. So those are two things I'm going to completely skip, also out of time reasons. I want to enter the entire picture from a different angle for today. And this is if we have somebody who is doing things in secret. It's not published in the newspapers, he will not talk about it in public. Then you have the other side of the game, that somebody is trying to figure out what is happening. And then there comes this ugly word, conspiracy theory, and one feels isolated. Here, okay. No, I dropped it.
Sorry.
If you're confronted with this thing that you might be a conspiracy theorist, then this is something emotional. Nobody wants to stand outside society. Nobody wants to be the weird guy. So this is basically an ugly argument that is used to make people shut up. So this can be fought with a few very, very not rational, just clever moves. We want to talk about chemtrails. So the first question that comes up to my mind is, where does this word come from? And this is a question that is beyond theory, because you can find out where the word comes from. And it comes from soldiers of the US Army, mostly US Air Force, who brought this word into the English language because they were sitting at the US Air Force Academy, attending classes of the chemical faculty, and one of the classes is the chemtrail class. This is kind of, when you study at this university, the class where you learn how to make chemtrails. Yeah. This doesn't touch the question, do chemtrails exist up in the sky or not? The only thing we can answer by looking at this chemtrail class is we can see this is a military technology. We don't know if it is applied or not, but we can study the technology because it's taught at the university. And this manuscript is a little bit hard to read. It's like 260 pages, roundabout. And basically it's examination questionnaires. So there's not a single answer in it, but there are thousands of questions. And when you take this manuscript and answer all the questions from these examinations, then you gather the knowledge. And from this knowledge, like with a jigsaw puzzle, you can back engineer what chemtrailing is. And basically the topics they are dealing with is aluminum coating of plastic surfaces is a big issue. And the synthesis of nylon. nylon fibers especially. This is one part of this chemtrail class. And if you want to know what this is good for, there's one military application called spoofer sprays. These are aluminum-coated nylon fibers, and they use it to hide planes from radar detection. This is not a big secret. It is officially admitted by state authorities that at certain NATO maneuvers in the sky, they use these spoofer sprays to train to hide airplanes. So this is one part that is described in this manuscript. The other half is a little bit more difficult to read and to analyze. It very, very much looks like that they are talking about spray pyrolysis, which is the production of crystalline nanoparticles in a combustion process. This is something that is done in industry when you want to produce certain types of nanoparticles. It is a very cheap and very efficient way to produce nanoparticles, and there are two ways in industry and in this manuscript. One possibility is you take like metal salts that you can solute in water, and then you take this water and run it through a ultrasound nozzle that is kind of turning it into millions of very, very small droplets. And these droplets are brought into a flame. And then the water evaporates, and the salt content of the little droplet forms a small dust particle, and if the flame is hot enough, it will eventually melt and recrystallize. And depending on the temperature and on the droplet sizes, you can create crystalline particles, you can create amorphous particles. This is one possibility that is within the range of spray pyrolysis. The other possibility is not to use water, but to directly use combustible liquids like methane or whatever. I think methane is within the US military the first choice. And then you don't even need a secondary ultrasound nozzle. You can use the ultrasound nozzles that create the vapor that is burned within a jet engine. So this is basically the chemical and technical knowledge that is taught in the chemtrail class. So we get a first idea what this technology is about. We still don't know if it is used regularly, if it is used sometimes, if this is something that is meant for wartime and in peacetime nobody even touches these technologies. We just learned something about the technology. Now, when you see how successful this way of looking at things is, we answered many questions where other people were searching, talking, discussing years and years and came to no fruitful conclusions. There's something that is very, very intelligent. If you have somebody that might have plans he doesn't want you to know, it is a very good thing to go to the places where these people are alone among each other and talk about what they do. Yeah? Then you can listen and understand what they plan. Actually, there's no other way to find out what's happening. So I started to get interested in internal papers of certain agencies. And there was one stupid mistake done by some network specialists in NASA. They published an internal paper. I think it's like 12, 15 years ago.
Okay, we're going to get to that interesting document he found. And I think it's really good to listen to what he's talking about. Makes a lot of sense to me, because when you just keep looking up in the sky and say, oh, that's strontium, barium, and this, and they're killing me, it really doesn't give us an answer of what they're really trying to do. And I think we're going to continue this amazing discovery that this man did in Germany, the scientist journalist, and come back and find out what he really found out with this NASA document and other things that are very important to really understand what the elites have planned for us. Back in 3 minutes on the Investigative Journal.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn. The Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a re-established Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, C-R-O-S-S, crosstheborder.org to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
The following program is labeled dangerous and off limits by the supreme Jesuit command. But stand tall, people. Listen up, and you may just learn something.
Oh, dear Lord Jesus, this ain't happening, man. This can't be happening, man. This isn't happening.
Okay, we're back for the second half hour of the Investigative Journal, and I'm dedicating this whole show to chemtrails, an analysis of it. We first dealt with, in the first half hour, do elites have an antidote for what they're spraying in the sky? And now we're calling upon a German scientist who's really looked in depth at really what's going on. So let's get back to that, and should take up the rest of the show. Here we go.
That was classified, and it appeared for 2 days in the public domain of the main NASA website. And some people just by incident found it and copied the paper. And since then, actually, this is public domain. It's brought out every now and then. It's discussed by people every now and then. It's not like a text that is giving a full description of what they are doing. Basically, it's just a PowerPoint that is displaying certain core terminologies. This is the paper in the original form, and the title is a little bit funny. It's Future Strategic Issues for Future Warfare. And they project this on the year 2025 as if they talk about future technologies. And then you have a very big, very small subtitle, The Future is Now. Now I'm a bit confused. Is it now or is it in 15, 20 years that this is going to be brought out? If you go into the entire thing, you find a number of irritating statements. This is kind of the second page, the little one on top. Bots, Borgs, and humans, welcome to the future. Bots is short term for nanobots, nanorobots. Borgs is a term coming from Star Wars, no, not Star Wars, Star Trek filming. It's the species that is assimilating other species by turning them into half computer, half being. And humans, I guess they mean themselves, the one who are not affected by those games and rule the entire thing afterwards. And they just name a number of technologies that are going to be used in future wars. And they explicitly say the war of the future is not in between countries. They expect to have a world government. So the war happening on this planet is between the government and the normal people. And this completely different type of war will need completely different weapons. And then they list all those weapons. And there are certain things that are solved for them on nano level, on the level of nanoparticles, sensor swarms. If you have the nanoparticles in the air, it's a swarm. And it has smart dust. This is something we will find later in the details we found in the environment. Nanotags, things that are placed within the human body to give them opportunity to track you down every single second and read out what you think and what you feel. And something that is not explained in this paper, they call it co-opted insects, whatever this is. I just want to point out at this moment that this is in their paper, because we're going to find things that are going very much to remind us of these words. Other things in this paper that are worth mentioning, weapons that are apparently legal. Yeah, they are talking about weapons that are hidden somewhere in the civil domain. Everybody is dealing with them, everybody is using them, and one of them is the microwave. Microwave is used for mobile phones, it's used for smart meters, it's used for wireless LAN connections, and we're surrounded by microwaves, and they enter our body, and we think this is just a side effect of technical applications. But NASA classifies microwaves as a non-lethal weapon that is apparently legal. And they also name the effect of those weapons. It's behavioral performance decrements, seizures, gross alteration in brain function, 30 to 100% increase in brain flow, in blood flow in the brain, and also lethal effects that come over the time. So this is weapons brought out on mankind that NASA is openly talking about, just projecting it in the paper to the future. And we are falling for this. We think it's something clever to have a mobile on your head half of the day. What they also have, and this is something that refers to Kara's work, is explosive microdust that can be intelligently moved through the air to certain areas. You can up-concentrate it and form an explosive lens. And it can also go intentionally into human beings to kill them from inside. They say that it's clever enough, the system, to go into underground facilities with the explosive dust to access people who are hiding down there. So this is basically this NASA document that is giving a kind of abstract picture what could be airborne in the future, or maybe, because the future is now, could be airborne already today. The next possibility to find out what is happening is to talk to whistleblowers. And there are not many whistleblowers around who really reveal essential facts. We have people like WikiLeaks, what's his name? Julian Assange. If you look who his lawyer is, it's the same lawyer that is serving the Rothschild family. And he's got massive attention by the state media. It was like building up a hero, you know. He's fucking 2 blonde Scandinavian girls. What a nice guy, you know. And then he's everybody's heroes, and then he's allowed to talk about certain things. And if you exactly look at the things he put into public, somehow it was serving the interests of the people in power. Now we have the other guy from the United States, the NASA guy, Snowden. What does he do? He's telling us that the intelligence community is listening to phone calls. This is something I know from the 1920s, that this is what the people do. And here and there he's dropping some things, but it's not actually the thing that is published on mainstream media. But mainstream media is carrying him, and Putin is offering him asylum. But I think, okay, I'm revealing other things, and nobody ever offered me asylum, and not a single newspaper is printing my truth. So there must be something wrong about these people. But sometimes you get whistleblowers who don't get public attention. And they deliver papers, and those papers are kind of interesting. There's one paper I want to mention that is handed around in Germany because it's written in German. And the guy was the technical director of an institute that was working on smart dust. And he suffered from cancer, and he had a kind of, 3-4 months to live before the cancer would kill him. And he regretted the things he did during his life. He realized that the money he got for it was not really worth anything, and that the things he did were not really friendly, and he basically put part of the technical concept on paper, gave enough information to make it possible to prove that it exists. And what he described basically was based on, maybe this is something, this is not for this audience, this is something that is going to the intelligence community that for sure is going to listen to this lecture as well. The name of the project is Rabe Neu in German. Translated it would be Raven New, so that you know that we know what you do. And the guy revealed a few things about this project that even the people in the project do not know. And this is the message that is now going to the intelligence community, because you should know what is wrong about this project. So what he did, he's talking about genetic engineering. And before I would like to mention a few things that he mentioned, I would like to give you an overview about the possibilities in genetic engineering that are publicly known. Not to everybody, but it is public domain. So in genetic engineering, you can create DNA, which is the full genetic information like it is in the cell, and you can split this thing into half and have kind of half of the structure, only one side of it, the spiral, and this is RNA. And in genetic engineering, it is very clever to use RNA because it has the full functionality, but it doesn't spoil the next generation. So this is something they really like to work on, because you can manipulate without destroying and without risking the future. If you look at DNA and RNA, there are a number of different functions to it. One function is that these fragments of RNA, DNA produce light of certain qualities. This is connected, it's called optogenetics, entire field of research. And it is the teaching about how the genetics produce biophotons and produce the light body of a being. And this is kind of the blueprint that is controlling the building up of forms of the morphogenetic field that is giving us the structure we are. So this is all done by this DNA. And if you synthesize DNA, this is done by printing today. You write down the code you want to produce, and then this is going into a DNA or RNA printing machine, so you can define every single base pair of the structure and print it out. So what they do is, one of the fields is optogenetics, to invent and produce little fragments of RNA, DNA that produce light. The second thing is, and the second natural function of DNA is to produce substances. These parts of the DNA are producing RNA, the RNA is producing proteins, and the proteins start to build up the matter that the body is built out of. And also, like healing substances and poisons can be produced by cells. And this is one function embedded in a certain span of this DNA. So this is something they say, there's medicine, for example, artemisinin. It's very, very expensive to extract it from plants. So they just extract the little portion of the genetic information that is doing this substance and insert it into some microbes. And then they can create artemisinin in big amounts. This is medicine, how that works. So we have light-producing things, and we have substance-producing things. And then there's a new field of research. They realized that the base pairs can be mounted into a chain in a way that functions like a computer, like a logical element. And this is if you visualize this, it's like the old method with telephones, when you were dialing with sound. Every base pair has a resonance frequency. It's somewhere in the terahertz range. And if you hit the right frequency, it is opening, like a light conducting unit. And if you have a chain of these base pairs that react on different frequencies, you need a sequence of sounds to open all the fragments to make the entire thing conductive. So it goes like do-do-do-do-do, and then the next part of the genetic thing is activated to either produce light or to produce poison. And this is something beautiful out of their view of the world, because if you bring this RNA or DNA into the human body, you can kind of take a radio signal and activate it from outside to produce any substance you want, or to produce any light you want. Light is emotion, light is thought, light is everything. Everything we sense as experience of ourselves. And a substance can do everything with us. It can poison us slowly, it can kill us immediately. And this is controllable by radio frequencies without risking that it is triggered without anyone to want it being triggered. And the guys said, actually, we know that this is dangerous to bring this out, so that was in the papers, so we introduced deactivation code, like a line of sounds that is completely taking the system out, and so that it cannot be abused by other entities. This is what he said. And he said this is airborne since 2003 in Europe. And he said that the second war, the last war in Iraq, was only done to test the system. was the only real reason for the war. This is what he wanted to tell us, or from my point of view, the important stuff. Then he said some things aside that I counted to be very, very important. I don't think he did. He said they spent half a year and $10 billion to optimize the cluster topology. And this is something that I guess says nothing to anyone here, but if you're into the topic, if it's like having a virus and you want to bring the virus into a human being to have him infected with this, cluster topology is of no interest. You need to think about cluster topologies. If you want to have this RNA or DNA clusters carry intelligence, carry soul, carry an artificial life form, then it makes sense. And if you picture this, we are infected with this RNA, and the RNA is forming a cluster of 1 millimeter distances around us. And a cluster like this is able to carry a computer program or an artificial, non-physical structure or being. This structure can hoover through the field, but it also can hoover into us. And this structure knows how to access the light production, and it knows how to access the production of poisons. And it also carries intelligence in itself and has the ability to make decisions. This is something that is just implied by the fact that he said we needed to optimize cluster topology. It's a little bit far out, it's a little bit speculation within this, but it gives me a kind of triggering moment when I listen to the word smart dust. Yeah? I get the feeling that this somehow is related to this capability of these optimized cluster topology to carry intelligence and to make its own decisions, if you want so. So this basically is just by looking at the spots where these people are among themselves and listening to some people who spoke out before they died. And the thing now I want to mention, this is the address to the intelligence community.
Okay, I have to skip here to part 2. And this is about 37 minutes long. I'll only have 6 minutes left. And we'll come back to this tomorrow.
I want to mention, this is the address to the intelligence community. I'm a hardcore scientist, but I really appreciate the possibilities that lie in the spiritual world. And I had so many open questions to this whistleblower that I decided to attend a lady that can talk to people who are dead. And I didn't inform her at all about the topic or about the questions I had. I just asked her, can you see if the soul is willing to appear in a session? And he immediately was there, and he immediately started to talk to her. She didn't even know about the topic. She didn't know my questions. I just told her I would like to have that guy in front of me. And he immediately started to talk through her, and he said, hey, this is alien technology. It is not human technology. And we have been fooled. There is no deactivation code. It doesn't exist. It's just a big scam that they kind of offered to us to let us think that we could control the system. But this is alien technology, and it is not controllable anymore through us. And this is the thing I would like the intelligence community to know. That they're sitting on a big scam, and they are not controlling the system. They believe they do, but they are not. Okay. This to the whistleblowing. And now we come to the things that we really can see in the lab. And if you go one step back to the chemical analysis, the elements you find, On one hand, you have this type of fingerprint. You find barium, strontium, titanium, and aluminum.
Okay, I got to say something here. Now, he's mentioning that last statement about alien technology. Now, you know my position on aliens, that they do not exist. However, you know something? Let's look at the scientific point of view here and not get sidetracked by that statement. That's all I can say about that. And let's go back to see what he has to say. If I can pod this up in the last few minutes.
Wherever plants die, these are the metals that can be found in, let's say, a slight overdose, more than nature should have in it. If you now check toxicology, it's not even close to the amount of heavy metals nature can take without suffering. If you look back at acid rain times, 1,000 times more heavy metals were soluted within the soil, entering the plant system. If you look back at industrial revolution, we didn't have filters burning coal like hell. You know, the times when London was buried under heavy smoke. We had much more, 1,000 times more heavy metals in the system than today, and nothing serious happened. So at that point we had to start looking at optical analysis, microscope analysis of particles that we found in the rain, which is difficult because you need to take thousands of photos and samples to be lucky to have one sample that is giving you a pure fraction of one component. If you have the entire mixture, you see nothing. And so the things I'm going to show now basically are based on the work of a guy in Germany who spent 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 hours a day in front of a microscope to find out what is in the rain. And one component is a piezoelectric nanocrystal. This is kind of a pure sample of the thing. You can see it has some kind of magnetism that makes the little particles join each other like magnets, which is one aspect of this piezoelectric properties. And the most amazing thing, if you look it up, piezoelectric properties could be expected with the barium, strontium, titanium, which is kind of the fingerprint, barium, titanium, strontium that we are looking for. There's no aluminum in it, but 3 of the elements are contained in this piezoelectric crystal.
Okay, I gotta cut it off right now. We're all out of time. But you know what? Excuse me, I'm gonna pick this up tomorrow on the Investigative Journal, so come back and have a good evening.
The book of Revelation says, the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ. This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.